Two Iranian oil tankers after Washington accused them of breaching the American blockade of ports. Well, let's get more on this now and speak live to Ambassador Gina Abercrombie-Winstanley, US diplomat and former Deputy Director for the Office of Iran Affairs and Deputy Coordinator for Counter-Terrorism. Always appreciate your time, Ambassador. Thank you for joining us. Does the ceasefire still mean anything at this point?
Really excellent question. It's more like an Israeli ceasefire. We've seen how those have gone in the Gaza Strip and in Lebanon, where there are attacks to and fro, but the ceasefire is in place. So this is a nominal one. The president has said that there are trifles. Its ceasefire is holding. The Secretary of Defense has said the same. And what that makes clear is that the United States needs this ceasefire to allow these negotiations to go forward.
So in a way, in practice, there isn't really a ceasefire because both Iran and the US are exchanging fire. But for diplomatic reasons, it's important for us all just to pretend that there is. Let's just say there's a ceasefire and go along with it.
And that's often the way in conflicts. There are breaches, sometimes through misunderstanding or people acting without clear direction, but often there is low-level conflict, even as negotiations go on. But neither side wants to return to open warfare, full-throated warfare. So, yes, a ceasefire of sorts.
And Ambassador, how effective is the US blockade of the Iranian ports at the moment?
It is pretty effective at this point. Iran is not able to get oil out. There may be ships slipping by. We know that they turn off their transponders, they do ship-to-ship transfers, but for the most part, it's pretty tight. And it's having an effect. Satellite imaging is shown today an oil spill near Harg Island. And that means that what we suspected, that the storage facilities that the Iranians have may not be able to hold all the oil they are unable to export. So it's having an impact.
Yeah, so it's definitely having an impact on the Iranian economy. But in terms of reopening the Strait of Hormuz and freeing up the global economy, the blockade doesn't really help, does it?
It does not. In fact, it just puts a double lock on the strait, the Iranian side and the American side at this point, which is why this is a no-win situation and why both sides are negotiating. And certainly the United States, President Trump has a number of pressures on him at this point. A lot of bad news is coming out about, the intelligence services saying that there was no pursuit of a nuclear weapon even before the war was started. So that's getting more traction in the press. The fact that all the expectations that the president and the Secretary of Defense said, it would be a quick war, 4 to 6 weeks at most. We've, degraded their capabilities. We've, complete air superiority. We're going to wipe them out. And we've heard the president make extraordinary claims about what the United States might do to Iran, Iranian civilization, etc. None of that bodes well, as he's got the world economy to look after. He's got oil prices, elections, the ties with the Gulf states, which are none of them pleased with the way this has gone. They didn't want the war to start. They're taking the brunt of what has happened since. And when the United States says that the ceasefire is holding and the United Arab Emirates is taking strikes from the Iranians that are doing damage to their economy, they don't have the same view about that ceasefire, and neither do other neighbors in the region. The China visit is coming up. There may be pressures there. China is standing so far pretty firm in support of Iran. And that reminder that this was a war of choice. The United States and Israel attacked Iran.
Are we any closer, in your view, to a peace deal?
I believe from the United States side that we are, because we need it. For all the reasons I mentioned, the president needs to be able to move beyond this war. His legacy was that he was not going to take us into long-term or forever wars. But the Iranians understand the pressures that the president is under, and they are perhaps in a better position to resist all the travails that come from this conflict, even those on their economy. They've been under sanctions for decades. They've been isolated internationally for decades. So they are in a more prepared position for this right now. But the United States needs to move forward. We have other interests back in our own region of Latin America, the Americas. So there may be some compromises that are reached between the two sides. We'll see what the answer is. The president was expecting to hear an answer before midnight on the 8th. So now we're into the 9th. So we'll see, did he get the answer?
Do you think we could be days away potentially? Because I know there was a lot of reporting he wanted some kind of peace deal before his China trip.
Well, remember, it's a framework. So what we could hope for is the strait to be open, the U.S. blockade to be removed, and the Iranians to allow ships to pass through again under their direction. And that means the lanes that they say ships should use, they may be able to charge service fees, I think the term is. So we'll see what changes are made in the strait. But we could see that happen before the president goes to China.
Ambassador, really appreciate your time.